The first scream she heard wasn't human. At least that's what Eleanor Briggs told herself as she froze on the forest trail, fingers tightening around the old wicker basket she carried every morning. The winter wind hissed through the pines, but beneath it came something raw, broken, and soaked in pain. For a moment she thought it was grief echoing back at her, the same grief she carried since her husband died 2 years ago. But the sound rose again, half muffled, half desperate, and definitely real, and that was the moment her lonely life changed forever. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and giving others a second chance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Eleanor stepped cautiously off the path, her boots sinking into the cold mud as the noise grew louder. Fear fluttered in her chest, but curiosity, or maybe compassion, pulled stronger. When she finally reached the small clearing, she stopped cold. There, slumped against a broken pine trunk, was a man, massive, tattooed, and wrapped in a leather Hell Angels jacket, now torn and soaked in blood. His hands were tied behind him, his lip was split, bruises darkened his face like storm clouds over a battlefield. His breath came fast and uneven, fogging in the cold morning air. He looked like a dark omen fallen from the sky. Yet there was something painfully human in the way his eyes met hers, pleading but resigned, as if he didn't expect help and wouldn't ask for it. Eleanor's world, quiet and hollow since losing her husband, suddenly felt dangerously loud. She had lived alone in the old farmhouse for years, her only company the memories trapped in picture frames and the aching silence of nights too long. She had never spoken to a biker, never imagined she'd be standing over one bleeding in the woods behind her property. But grief teaches people strange kinds of bravery. She stepped closer despite the tremble in her hands. The man watched her carefully, but not with threat, more like disbelief. She whispered that she would help, even though her voice shook. It felt like someone else was speaking through her, someone who remembered what it was to care for another human being. She didn't ask questions, not then. She simply cut the ropes, lifted his arm over her shoulder, and half-dragged, half-guided him back to her farmhouse. Every step felt unreal. His weight leaned heavy against her, yet she never felt more certain of anything. Inside, she cleaned his wounds, pressed warm cloths to his cuts, and wrapped bandages with the steady hands of someone who had once known how to take care of the man she loved. His skin was cold, his body trembling either from pain or exhaustion. When she finally managed to get him lying on her couch, he exhaled with a sound that echoed both relief and defeat. Over the next hours, Eleanor pieced together fragments of what happened. He'd been ambushed by rivals, beaten, robbed, left tied up in the woods as a warning. His club brothers were hours away. He didn't even know where he was. She realized he had expected to die there. Something inside her tightened at that thought, the memory of sitting beside her dying husband, powerless to change anything. She couldn't save him back then, but she could save this stranger now, and she did. The days that followed shifted something fundamental in both their lives. The man, who eventually told her his name was Jax, recovered slowly under her quiet care. He was rough, scarred, and carried a life she could barely imagine. But beneath all that was a surprising gentleness, the kind that appeared in the way he thanked her each morning, the way he insisted on helping with chores once he could stand, the way he listened when she spoke about her husband, about the loneliness that had grown like vines around her heart. Jax didn't try to fix her grief, he simply shared the silence with her, and somehow that felt like healing. Eleanor found herself noticing small things she hadn't in years. The warmth of another presence in her home, the sound of footsteps that weren't her own, the way sunlight looked when it hit someone else's smile. Jax, for all his hardened edges, carried his own kind of sorrow, a life of violence and loss that had shaped him into something fierce but also quietly broken. The more she learned, the more she realized they were two wounded souls drifting through different storms, meeting in the same unexpected harbor. The townspeople whispered when they saw him, but Eleanor didn't flinch. She had lived too long in the shadows of grief to let fear decide for her anymore. And Jax, towering and intimidating to anyone who didn't know him, softened in her presence like a wolf learning he could trust again. He repaired her barn door, fixed the squeaking kitchen hinges, and split firewood without being asked. But the real changes were smaller. Him learning to sit on the porch without scanning the horizon for danger, her learning to laugh again at things she didn't think she would ever find funny. Winter melted into early spring. Jax healed, but neither of them spoke about him leaving. The thought lingered unspoken between them like a ghost that both feared. One evening, as the last light faded, Eleanor realized she wasn't just grateful for his presence. She was afraid of losing it. She hadn't felt love since her husband died. She hadn't expected to feel it again. Yet here it was, slow and unexpected, blooming in the quiet moments they shared. The night he told her he planned to leave in the morning, her heart cracked in a way she thought she'd run out of pieces for. But something about the way he spoke, low, hesitant, almost regretful, made her believe he didn't truly want to go. He had lived a life of roads and recklessness, but this house, this woman, had become something dangerously close to home. Before the sun rose, he found her on the porch, eyes red from a night without sleep. He told her he didn't want to walk, away from the only peace he'd felt in years. And she told him she didn't want to spend another day pretending she wasn't already falling for him. It wasn't a dramatic confession. It was quiet, real. Two broken souls choosing to stop running from what they'd found. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. Before I end this story, please comment below, do you believe broken people can heal each other? And so Jax stayed, not because he was trapped by circumstance, but because kindness had saved him, and love had given him a place to belong. Two unlikely hearts, stitched together by fate, found something worth holding on to. Not perfection, but a second chance at life. And sometimes, that's the most powerful love story of all.